You are explaining it again. Slower this time. Simpler words. You rephrase the problem. You outline the solution. You watch your manager nod along as if they are following, but you can see it in their eyes. Nothing is landing. They are not confused because the issue is complex. They are confused because they do not understand their own job. And yet somehow, by the end of the conversation, you are the one left feeling like you failed to communicate. You walk out wondering if you are the problem. Then comes the meeting, the emergency meeting. The one called to address the disaster that happened because no one made a decision last week. Your manager stands at the front of the room using words like alignment and strategic pivot and operational bandwidth. They speak for 40 minutes. They gesture with authority. They reference frameworks no one has heard of. And when it is over, you realize nothing was said. No decision was made. No responsibility was assigned. You leave the room more confused than when you entered. And somehow, you feel stupid for not understanding. Why does this keep happening? Why does intelligence not protect you here? You are competent. You see the problems clearly. You offer solutions. And yet the person above you, the one who understands nothing, continues to thrive. They fail upward. They create disaster after disaster and somehow never pay for it. How? Because incompetent leaders do not fail despite the chaos. They survive because of it. Confusion is not a flaw in their leadership. It is the strategy. The more disorder they generate, the less anyone can trace a failure back to them. Complexity becomes camouflage. Noise becomes armor. When no one knows what is happening, no one knows who is responsible. And so they keep talking. They keep calling meetings. They keep reshuffling priorities. Not because they have a plan, but because motion looks like leadership. And confusion protects the incompetent better than competence ever could. This is not an accident. This is not mismanagement. This is survival. Machiavelli understood this 5 centuries ago. He watched men with no ability rise to power and stay there. Not through merit, not through intelligence, but through the deliberate cultivation of obscurity. The leader who cannot be understood cannot be blamed. The leader who creates constant crisis can claim to be managing constant crisis. And the people beneath them, the ones who actually understand the work, are too exhausted trying to interpret the noise to realize they are being played. What follows is not advice on how to cope with this. It is an explanation of how the game actually works. You have sat through meetings where nothing was decided. You have read emails that said everything except what mattered. You have watched someone in authority take a simple problem and transform it into a labyrinth of jargon, committees, and procedures that solved nothing but consumed weeks of everyone's time. And you have asked yourself, why does this keep happening? The answer is simpler than you think. Incompetent leaders create chaos because clarity would destroy them. Here is what Machiavelli understood centuries before we had the language for it. A prince who cannot govern will not admit his weakness. He will instead complicate the system until no one can tell where the failure originates. He will surround himself with advisors, protocols, and endless deliberations. Not because the problem is complex, because he is incapable of solving it. Complexity becomes camouflage. Confusion becomes protection. The more tangled the situation, the harder it is to trace the incompetence back to its source. Think about the last time you encountered a leader who could not answer a direct question. They did not say, "I do not know." They said, "Well, it depends on how we frame the strategic priorities within the evolving landscape of stakeholder engagement." You walked away more confused than before. That was the point. The less someone knows, the more words they use. This is not accidental, this is survival. When you lack competence, you cannot afford simplicity. Simplicity exposes. A clear plan can be evaluated. A clear decision can be judged. A clear answer can be proven wrong. So instead, you obscure. You complicate. You create the illusion of depth by drowning everyone in language that means nothing. Consider the department head who sends a 12-page memo about restructuring workflows. It arrives in your inbox with phrases like synergistic optimization and cross-functional alignment matrices. You read it twice. You understand nothing. You look around the room during the meeting. No one else understands it either. But no one admits this. Because admitting confusion feels like admitting stupidity, so everyone nods, everyone agrees. The project moves forward. 6 months later, it collapses. But by then, the memo is forgotten. The failure is blamed on market conditions, on unforeseen variables, on anything except the person who designed a plan no one could follow, because they themselves did not know what they were doing. This is the Dunning-Kruger effect in its natural habitat. The cognitive bias where those with the least ability overestimate their competence the most. But it is not just overestimation. It is self-protection through obfuscation. If you do not understand the problem, you cannot propose a simple solution. So you propose a complicated one. You make it sound sophisticated. You make it sound necessary. You make it impossible to challenge without appearing unsophisticated yourself. And here is what makes this so effective: most people will not call it out. They will assume the complexity is justified. They will assume their confusion is their own fault. They will think, this must be important, I just do not understand it yet. They will defer. They will comply. They will participate in their own bewilderment, because questioning authority feels more dangerous than enduring confusion. The majority does not resist this. They enable it, not because they are foolish, because they are conflict averse, because they are trained to trust hierarchy, because calling out incompetence requires certainty, and certainty requires clarity, and clarity is exactly what the incompetent leader has made impossible. So the chaos continues, the meetings multiply, the emails lengthen, the org charts grow more baroque, and beneath it all, the simple truth remains unspoken. The person in charge has no idea what they are doing, but they have learned that if they make the problem complicated enough, no one will notice. And this raises the question, what happens when an entire organization runs on this principle? You have probably noticed this pattern. A leader announces a new priority, everyone drops what they are doing. Resources are reallocated. Meetings are scheduled. Then, 3 days later, silence. The priority evaporates, a new one appears. And the cycle begins again. This is not poor planning. This is strategy. Here is what Machiavelli understood about power long before we had the language to describe it. A prince who cannot govern through competence must govern through confusion. When you cannot deliver results, you deliver motion instead. You create the appearance of decisive action while ensuring that no single action can ever be evaluated. You generate so much noise that the signal becomes impossible to detect. Machiavelli saw this in the courts of Renaissance Italy. The same dynamic plays out in every conference room today. The psychological mechanism at work is what we now call a cascade of incompetence. It functions like this: an incompetent leader makes a decision. The decision is flawed, but no one realizes it immediately because implementation takes time. Before the consequences become visible, the leader introduces a new decision. This one contradicts or undermines the first. Teams pivot, resources scatter. Then a third decision arrives, then a fourth. Each one creates new dependencies, new conflicts, new emergencies. The organization enters a state of permanent crisis. And here is the key: in a state of permanent crisis, causality becomes untraceable. Think about the manager who operates this way. Monday morning, the entire team is told that Project Alpha is the top priority. Drop everything. This is critical. The deadline is 2 weeks away. Everyone reorganizes their schedules. Vendors are contacted. Budgets are reallocated. By Wednesday, Project Alpha is no longer mentioned. Instead, there is a new initiative, Project Beta. This one is even more urgent. The language is identical: critical, top priority, all hands on deck. The team scrambles again. Project Alpha sits half finished. By Friday, a third priority emerges, Project Gamma. And now the deadlines overlap. People are working nights. Coordination breaks down. Nothing gets completed. When the quarter ends and nothing has been delivered, the manager does not accept responsibility. How could they? Which decision caused the failure? Was it Alpha, Beta, Gamma? Or was it the team's inability to execute? The manager frames it as an execution problem. They hire consultants. They talk about cultural issues. They blame a lack of accountability. And the consultants, who are paid to find problems, will always find them. They will produce reports. They will recommend new frameworks. And the cycle continues. This is not incompetence hiding itself. This is incompetence weaponizing itself. Chaos prevents accountability because accountability requires a clear line between cause and effect. You make a decision. The decision produces an outcome. The outcome is evaluated. But when decisions cascade over one another, when priorities shift faster than consequences can materialize, that line disappears. You cannot hold someone accountable for a failure when 10 other variables were introduced before the failure occurred. The incompetent leader knows this. They may not articulate it consciously, but they feel it. And so they keep moving. They keep announcing. They keep pivoting. The majority of people in the organization respond predictably. They work harder. They stay later. They try to keep up. They tell themselves that this is what high performance looks like. They internalize the chaos as a personal failing. If only they were more organized. If only they managed their time better. If only they communicated more clearly. They do not see that the system is designed to prevent success. They see their own exhaustion and assume they are the problem. Machiavelli would recognize this immediately. He wrote about leaders who maintained power, not through virtue, but through the appearance of virtue. Not through results, but through the appearance of action. The incompetent leader does not need to succeed. They need to look like they are trying to succeed. And chaos is the perfect cover. Because in chaos, effort becomes indistinguishable from achievement. And here is what makes this so effective: the more chaos they create, the more indispensable they appear. Someone has to manage all these priorities. Someone has to make the tough calls. Someone has to keep the plates spinning. The leader who created the chaos now positions themselves as the only one capable of navigating it. You begin to see the logic. Chaos is not the byproduct of incompetence. Chaos is the product. You have seen it happen. Someone gets promoted. Everyone knows they are not the best person for the role. Everyone knows someone else was more qualified, but no one says anything. And within 6 months, the person who actually did the work has left the company. You wonder why good people always leave. You already know the answer. You just do not want to say it out loud. Organizations do not reward competence. They reward the appearance of competence. They reward confidence. They reward visibility. They reward the person who sounds like they know what they are doing, not the person who actually knows. This is not a flaw in the system. This is the system. Here is what Machiavelli understood about this centuries ago. Power does not go to those who deserve it. Power goes to those who perform it. The prince who appears strong survives. The prince who is strong but appears weak does not. Machiavelli was not teaching cruelty. He was teaching reality. If you want to lead, you must first look like a leader. If you want authority, you must first project authority. Substance without performance is invisible. And in organizations, the invisible do not get promoted. Think about the last time you watched 2 people compete for the same position. One of them worked quietly, saved money, made things run smoothly. The other one gave presentations, talked about innovation, used words like synergy and disruption and transformation. Delivered nothing. Absolutely nothing. But they delivered it loudly, and guess which one got promoted? The quiet one did the work. The loud one performed the work. The quiet one solved 3 major problems no one even noticed were problems. The loud one identified problems everyone already knew about and promised to solve them later. The quiet one saved the company money. The loud one talked about growth. And growth sounds better than savings. Growth sounds like vision. Savings sounds like maintenance. No one gets promoted for maintenance. You know what happened next? The loud one got the promotion. Gave a speech about leading the team into the future. The quiet ones stayed in their role. Watched someone less competent take credit for the infrastructure they built. Watched that person make decisions that unraveled months of careful work. And 6 months later, the quiet one quit. Everyone acted surprised. Everyone said it was a shame. Everyone wondered why good people always leave. But no one wondered why bad leaders always stay. Jung called this the persona. the mask you wear in public, the role you perform so others will see you the way you want to be seen. Everyone has one, but most people do not realize how much of their identity is performance. They think the mask is their face. They think confidence is the same as competence. They think the person who speaks with certainty must know what they are talking about. They do not ask whether the certainty is earned. They just respond to it. This is why incompetent leaders thrive. They have mastered the persona. They know how to look decisive, how to sound authoritative, how to project control even when they have no idea what they are doing. And most people cannot tell the difference. Most people do not evaluate leaders by results. They evaluate them by presence, by charisma, by how the leader makes them feel. A leader who admits uncertainty makes people nervous. A leader who pretends to have all the answers makes people feel safe, even if the answers are wrong. The majority does not want competence. They want reassurance. They want someone who looks like they are in control, someone who speaks without hesitation, someone who performs confidence so convincingly that doubt becomes impossible. This is not because people are stupid. This is because uncertainty is unbearable. And the leader who removes uncertainty, even falsely, even temporarily, wins their loyalty. You see the pattern now. The person who does the work becomes invisible. The person who performs the work becomes indispensable. And once you understand this, you understand why chaos is not a bug. Chaos is a feature, because chaos makes performance even more valuable than substance. You will spend years thinking you are the problem. You will reread their emails at midnight, trying to extract logic from contradictions. You will build spreadsheets to track commitments they never intended to keep. You will sit in meetings where decisions reverse themselves between the door and the parking lot, and you will assume you misunderstood. You will not misunderstand. They will simply say whatever prevents discomfort in that specific moment, and you will be the one left holding the shattered pieces of a plan that was never real. Your colleagues will watch you absorb the blame. They will see you apologize for delays you did not cause, own failures you did not produce, and somehow you will become the person who cannot execute. While the leader who created the disaster gets praised for staying calm under pressure. Pressure they invented, chaos they required. And you will carry this forward into the next role, and the next, learning to manage up, to anticipate their contradictions, to become fluent in the language of incompetence. You will become an interpreter of madness. Your skill set will be translation, not creation. And when you finally burn out, when your health cracks or your reputation quietly erodes, they will have moved on. They always do. The chaos will follow them, but your name will stay attached to the wreckage. Stop translating. Stop trying to find the hidden coherence in what was designed to have none. This is not a puzzle you failed to solve. This is a system working exactly as intended. Chaos is not a bug. It is the feature. It prevents accountability. It makes you the problem. It ensures that every failure points downward and every success flows upward. Machiavelli understood this. The prince who cannot govern creates motion to disguise stagnation. The leader who cannot decide creates endless revision to simulate thought. Your competence becomes the tool of their survival. Your clarity makes their fog look strategic. So document everything, not to win arguments, not to prove you were right, but to create a record that chaos cannot erase. Speak plainly in every meeting. Repeat commitments aloud, confirm decisions in writing. Not because you are paranoid, because you are sane. And when the contradictions come, when the plan changes for the third time this week, do not absorb it. Do not rework the strategy again. State the change, name the cost. And stop pretending their confusion is your responsibility. You are not their translator. You are not the architect of order in a kingdom of deliberate disorder. You are someone who can see what is happening. That alone separates you from the majority. Most people will never accept this. They will keep believing that effort conquers incoherence, that loyalty earns clarity, that if they just work harder the fog will lift. It will not lift. The fog is the point, but you are not most people. You think differently. You see the pattern, And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Your clarity is not a gift to them, it is a weapon for you.